Back to that breaking news involving Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland has apparently met with Abrego Garcia. We want to go now to Catherine Falders, who's been digging into this. Catherine, what have you learned?
Hey, so there's a lot of details that we still are working to confirm here, but we know that Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, of course, traveled down to El Salvador with the intention of meeting with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. We know what Chris Van Hollen said earlier today, that he was turned away from that El Salvador prison when he tried to visit him. But photos have just surfaced on social media that show Van Hollen meeting with him. Now, these photos were posted by Chris Van Hollen. He showed that he appeared to be sitting down for a meal with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That's essentially all he said, that he had the privilege of meeting with him. He said tonight he had the chance to meet with him. He's called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along his messages of love. That's according to Chris Van Hollen. He says that he looks forward to providing a full update upon his return to the United States, given that he was able to sit down with him. There's still a lot of unanswered questions here. We know that he was deported wrongfully in an administrative error. The United States admits to that mega prison in El Salvador, and we know that that is where he has been. There's, again, a lot of questions to be answered here. Where is he right now? The government has been required to provide updates on that to a district judge. Will they say something on this tomorrow? We know that the president of El Salvador has appeared to suggest that he is now in the custody still of El Salvador, but again, where is that? Where is he physically? He's in their custody. Is he back in that prison? Still a lot of unanswered questions here, but what we do know is that Van Hollen was able to sit down with him face to face, it appears, over a meal today in El Salvador. Again, the senator says he'll provide updates when he gets back to the United States, which I assume will be in the coming hours, so we will likely learn more then.
And Catherine, as you know, Garcia was sent there to El Salvador, to that notorious prison, by the Trump administration back in March, despite an immigration court order preventing his deportation. And you also mentioned the Trump administration acknowledged that he was sent there in error. So what have they said recently about this? Can you kind of walk us through what they've said, despite saying that this was an error and saying that he was going to remain there? What else are they saying?
Well, they've said a lot here, and you know, it kind of depends where you go to consult your information, right? If you go to the court and you see what the administration has said to the court, which they have consistently said that he was deported to El Salvador wrongly, in error, because he was not supposed to be deported there. And look, if you talk to people at the White House, they would say, oh, he was correctly deported there. The district judge in Maryland, who's overseeing this case, again, has asked the administration to provide consistent updates. And frankly, she has said, like, in the next couple of weeks that she wants discovery. She wants to learn more information about this. All of these things that these judges are saying, the administration is appealing. So the bottom line is that they don't believe that they need to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, or I should say facilitate the return of him to the United States. But at the end of the day, it's very simple here. We know that the Supreme Court ordered his return. We know that the administration has not done that. And we also know that a circuit court essentially has denied the Trump administration's efforts to appeal this order from this district judge. And it's a fascinating thing, and I just want to read this quote, because the administration wants to appeal everything that the courts have said, but a circuit court has said, at least just a couple hours ago, and I want to read this quote, "It is difficult in some cases to get to the very heart of the matter, but in this case," referring to the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, "it is not hard at all. The government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process. That is the foundation of our constitutional order." So this is obviously making its way through the higher courts. This appeals court has spoken. So the question is really, what happens next? What does the government say? What do they say about this meeting? What do they say about the fact that he was apparently facilitated out of this prison? And where is he now? Again, many unanswered questions here that hopefully we get answers to in the coming hours.
Absolutely. All right, Catherine Falders for us tonight. Thank you so much for checking in with us and updating us on this situation. Really appreciate that.